things like I'm different, I don't belong, right? All of those things. So why is that really important? Because remember I talk about in the life cycles, we get to the point where we get to the end of our third development cycle and we go, I'm just going to be this thing. And when I'm this thing, then everybody will think I'm awesome. So you can pull yourself up by the bootstraps coming out of that, mediocre adolescence, coming off the back of a reasonably disconnected family life in your primary years. And you just decide, I'm just going to prove myself by being this, thing, whatever, insert big whoopee word here. Or your feelings of wanting, being rejected by your family, and if you're not able to connect with your peers, you'll often line up on one side or the other. I want to really please my family, so then I'll go on and I'll be whatever it is the family want me to be, right? And I need to be this perfect human being. And just be aware, you'll all slot yourself into different parts along this continuum, right? Because it's not a whole segmented, but this is a continuum of how we look at life. So why is it important? Because when we get into depressed space, depression is very much shame-based, okay? Anxiety, very much fear-based. Depression is looking back going, oh, if only this didn't happen, if only that didn't happen. Anxiety is looking to the future going, what if this happens, what if that happens, okay? Very clear distinctions about what the difference between depression and anxiety actually is. All right, so why is that important? Because in all of our future connections that we make, friendships, intimate relationships, family connections, our ability to get secure connections with other people has an awful lot to do with how we were raised. So if you were raised in a family in which your connection to your parents was what I would call enmeshed, so you have, and this happens in a lot of cultures, like European cultures and stuff, where the expectations placed on children by their parents are huge. Their obligations to their parents in terms of making sure they get a really good outcome, their education, the parents have invested all this time and energy into them and the child owes them. Does that make sense? So that emotional responsibility, the child actually has almost to give to the parent what the parent wants. Now, that's problematic for a range of other reasons, but it happens, right? Or there's lots of other emotionality stuff going on where sometimes, highly critical mothers or fathers or whatever, but they make their child emotionally responsible for them. On the other side, we've got complete neglect. And, at a really extreme end, it's really severe neglect, but it can just be, I'm a member of a really big family and mum and dad were working or busy or whatever, and your presence in the household was just kind of like, oh yeah, well, if you were around, great, and if you weren't, didn't really matter that much. It was not like your presence or involvement in your parents' life was really that important. And for some people, it's a total rejection, right? Their parents actually wish they weren't there. But all of us fit in that continuum somewhere. And I'm going to give it to you, it's a bit like a bell curve, okay? So you've got the really enmeshed ones up one end and the really neglected ones down the other. And the 80% of us sit somewhere in between. Why is that bell curve important? Because whenever you go into a relationship, and it doesn't matter, like I said, intimate relationship, friendship, working relationship, family connections, how you react or respond to any potential rejection within that relationship is going to be determined by your parental relationships and then how many times you feel rejected. So if you've gone through your adolescence and you've been able to have good peer connections, then your tendency to be more extreme is probably going to be a bit less. But if you've gone through your adolescence and not been able to get good connections, so in other words, you've usually come out of it depressed because you didn't have good family connections either, you're going to have more experiences of rejection, more of a sense that you're really not valuable or worth it. Okay, why is that important? Because it sets us up for how we behave whenever we perceive a rejection's going to happen between us and another human being. So whenever we perceive a disconnection, right? So let me take you back to that trauma word. So whenever we experience a trauma because there's a disconnection that's happened, even when we perceive a disconnection, we're going to react in one of two ways, all right? And then we're going to flip. If you grew up in a household where you were enmeshed, your first port of call is actually going to be quite clingy. And you're going to please don't leave me. Please connect with it. Is there anything I can do? I'm sorry. I don't know what I've done, but just please let me. I'll do whatever you want to work it out, right? On the total other side is a sense of absolute protector rejections, kind of like, all right, you don't want to hang out with me, fine, rack off. It's crickets, right? Ghosted. All of a sudden, I've disappeared. Okay, why is there distinction between the two, right? And then we'll usually flip.